Hello everyone, welcome to What If Luffy Was Reincarnation of Gin Ichimaru Part 3. Before we start, please go support KZ1818 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. Chapter 12. Everyone just stared at what Luffy had done. Krieg was the first to react. "What are you waiting for, Gin?" he yelled. "Kills F already." Gin, however, seemed reluctant to. As Gin struggled with himself, Sanji came up to Luffy with an angered look. "What are you doing?" he yelled. "Why are you attacking the restaurant? Why are you angry?" "All I did was punch a hole in the ship," Luffy said before he grinned. "But I'll sink the restaurant next." "What?" everyone but Zeph said. "No way, you will not sink this restaurant," Sanji yelled. "I owe everything to her, it's all Zeph has left, so you're going to die for a dumb restaurant? Are you stupid?" Luffy asked. "Getting killed is how you'll repay the old man for all he's done. The old man didn't save you to kill yourself. He saved you so you could do something with your life, not die like a fool, so you're helping them out," Sanji yelled back. Before he could go on, a banging noise got everyone's attention as Pearl had taken the shields from his knees and were now hitting them together. "I've had enough of you two," he screamed as he set himself on fire again. "This time, I'll burn you both until not even ashes remain." He then charged at the both of them. Luffy was ready to take him out again, but stopped when Jin ran in front of him and smashed Pearl's shield, taking him out for good. "Move it, Pearl," Jin said as Pearl fell to the deck. Everyone stared in shock at Jin for taking out his own crewmate. Luffy just gave a blank stare as Krieg snarled. "What is the meaning of this, Jin?" Krieg shouted. "First you disobey my orders and now you're taking out your own shipmates. Have you lost your mind?" "I know the Dawn." "I'm sorry," Jin said. "But Sanji saved my life. The least I can do is take him out myself. I owe him that much. Please, Dawn." Krieg stared at Jin before he sat down on the wreckage of his ship. "Fine," Krieg said. "You take out that cook and the silver-haired bastard." The Krieg pirates then started yelling about how Jin was chief commander of Krieg's armada. How he was a strong, cold-hearted monster. "Look, Sanji, I didn't want the ship damaged, but it's too late for that. All I'm doing is following orders." "I see," Sanji said before he lit a cigarette. "But if you want this restaurant, then you're gonna have to kill me first." "Sounds fair," Jin said. "It'll be an honor, my friend." "Thanks, you bastard," Sanji said as he blew out some smoke. Jin then looked at Luffy. "You too," Jin said. Luffy only smiled as he crossed his arms. "What makes you think you can kill me?" he asked. Jin narrowed his eyes as the Krieg pirates started yelling insults. "How dare you talk like that to us? Crush him into dust, Jin. Show him why we Krieg pirates are the strongest in the East Blue." Luffy just looked at them all. "Only because you outnumber everyone else," he said. All the Krieg pirates wanted to object but knew they couldn't deny the truth. "They look angry," Sanji said with a smirk. "So what?" Luffy said. "How are they getting stronger if all they do is add more crewmates?" Jin raised an eyebrow at this, while the other Krieg pirates started rushing in to attack Luffy. "Stop right there," Krieg shouted. All the pirates stopped as Krieg told them it was pathetic to get riled up at a few words. He then ordered Jin to kill them. "Yes, Dawn," Jin said before looking back at Sanji. He began to swing his tonfa around before he and Sanji began to fight. He missed Sanji, smashing his weapon into the deck while Sanji aimed a kick at his side. He dodged it before slamming his tonfa down on Sanji's neck, pinning him to the floor. "Nothing personal, Sanji." He then attacked, but Sanji spat his cigarette in his face before sliding away and kicking Jin in the head. Jin held onto his weapon as he smashed it into Sanji's side. Sanji was flung away by the attack but got back to his feet before they went at each other again. While this happened, Luffy was calmly walking along the fallen mast towards Krieg. Krieg saw him before he smirked. "Where do you think you're going, brat?" he asked. "Sanji can handle Jin," Luffy said as he looked at Krieg. "So I'm gonna kick your ass, Krieg." "Big words from a wimp like you," Krieg said. "Jin, Sanji." Both Luffy and Krieg looked back to see both fighters bleeding and breathing heavily. Jin started swinging his tonfa again before he attacked again. He missed as Sanji did a handstand and kicked Jin in the back. Jin stumbled forward a bit but held his ground as he looked back at Sanji. He tightened his grip on his weapons as he narrowed his eyes before spinning them again. He charged and aimed his ball tonfa at Sanji's head. Sanji jumped back but found out too late that it was a ruse as Jin used the momentum to aim his other tonfa at Sanji's side, nailing his in the ribs. Sanji was coughing up blood but managed to stay on his feet. "Sanji," Luffy yelled. "Shit," thought Sanji. "Another attack like that and I'm screwed. Why couldn't you just stay down, Sanji?" Jin thought. "If you had, I wouldn't have to kill you." He sighed before he spun his weapon again, determined to end this. "Finish him off," Jin, Krieg ordered. Jin's eyes were covered in shadow before he charged at Sanji. He swung downward, aiming for Sanji's legs to secure victory. Luffy looked at the fight to see how it ended. Jin attacked but missed and left himself open to Sanji. Everyone was shocked except Luffy, who just smiled. At the last second, Jin twisted his hand slightly and deliberately missed. Sanji took this chance to swing around and put everything he had into one final kick into the back of Jin's head. Jin's head smacked into the deck before his eyes turned white and blood spurt from his mouth. Jin thought as he slowly fell to the deck. I'm sorry. No one ever showed me any kindness. I can't do it. I can't kill him. He then fell to the deck, half conscious and bleeding as his weapons fell from his hands. He struggled to get back up but only succeeded in turning over and lying on his back. Everyone was stunned by Jin's defeat while Jin had tears falling down his face. Not for losing, but because he couldn't live with himself if he killed Sanji. No way. A pirate mumbled. Jin lost? Another asked. It was silent for a moment but that ended when the chefs cheered. Ha, see that pirates, Patty yelled. This is our restaurant, Karn added. Luffy smiled while the Krieg pirates couldn't help but stare on in shock. Krieg eyes were shadowed as veins started sticking out of his neck and on his forehead. What are you doing, Jin? Krieg bellowed, shutting everyone up. Jin turned an eye toward Krieg from where he lay. Losing to a cook? How dare you humiliate us like this? Other pirates were yelling as well. Come on, Jin, get up. You can't lose to that cook. On. Jin muttered as his sight blurred in and out of focus on his captain. He then looked over at Sanji, who was also bloody but standing over him. His then looked at Luffy, who was smiling. You're second in command of the Krieg pirates, how could one guy beat you? A pirate shouted out. Jin's eyes shot open at that statement but not from anger. He stared, wide-eyed at the sky, for a few moments as the others finally stopped yelling. Well? Krieg shouted. What do you have to say for yourself? Everyone was quiet, waiting to hear what Jin had to say. It felt like forever before a sound came from Jin as he trembled. It was faint at first, but slowly the sound grew. Jin was laughing. Everyone stared, completely gobsmacked, at hearing Jin laugh as he lay defeated. Is he laughing? A chef asked. What's so funny, Jin? He shouted. Jin's laughter died down, but a smile was left on his face as he stared at the sky. I'm sorry. He said. It's what's so clear? Krieg asked in annoyance. Everything. Jin said as he struggled, but finally managed to sit up. Why we lost as bad as we did to Hawkeye. He looked at Luffy. Why that kid doesn't fear us. He then looked at Sanji. And why Sanji here beat me. Everyone looked at each other, totally lost at what Jin was saying. What was it then? Luffy asked, although knowing what his answer is. Jin looked to the sky again before he sighed. Because we are weak. Jin said. Krieg's eyes widened and were bloodshot while all the pirates had their mouths hanging open in pure shock. The chefs were equally stunned except Zeph, who smirked. Luffy smiled as well while some of the pirates found their voices. What do you mean we're weak, Jin? How hard did that cook kick you? We're the Krieg pirates, we're the strongest in the East Blue. How dare you? Krieg shouted so loud that he was on the verge of tearing his own throat. What exactly makes you us weak then? Tell me, Jin. It's like that kid said. Jin said. How are we getting stronger if all we do is add more to the crew? Luffy smiled as Jin gave him an answer. The answer? We're not. Everyone looked at him in confusion. If we just keep adding more crewmates, the ones we have won't get any stronger. Right, kid? That's it. Luffy said. Everyone was lost as Krieg had finally had enough. Silence, he said. Did you forget who we are? We're the Krieg pirates. All we'll need is that logbook of Zeph's and the Grand Line is in the bag. No. Jin said. His smile dropped as he stared at Krieg. Even with that logbook, nothing will change. All we'll know is what's out there. We'll still be too weak to do anything about it. The other pirates couldn't believe what they were hearing. The most loyal of their crew was disagreeing with their captain. You little son of a bitch, Krieg said as he took one of his shoulder plates and aimed it at them. If you've lost faith in us, then you're not my chief commander anymore. Pirates, out of the way. The face on the shoulder plate opened its mouth at them all. Krieg got ready to fire the poisonous gas. Not the gas, Jin gasped. Before Krieg could fire it. Playtime is over. Bankai Kamishini, no Yari. Luffy. In an instant Krieg, his men and what remained of his ship were slashed. On is dead, Jin thought in shock. Everyone was left speechless by what Luffy did. Should have done that earlier, wouldn't have to listen to his whiny voice. Luffy laughed. That kid is a monster. Zeph thought. Few minutes later. So Jin, what do you plan on doing now that your crew is dead? Sanji asked as he stood there with the other chefs. Zeph and Luffy stood between them all in the restaurant. Who knows? Jin said as he stared out at the ocean. Maybe head to the Grand Line. The Grand Line? Luffy asked. Yeah. Jin said as he looked over his shoulder at Luffy. I don't know why, but after seeing your friend put everything on the line for his dream, I've decided to go. And this time, I'm not gonna run. Luffy smiled. Yeah? Patty yelled. But know one thing, you bastard, you ever come here again, we'll kick your ass. Yeah, screamed the other chefs. Jin just smirked before he turned back to the boat. Hey Jin. Luffy said before Jin got on. If you're going to the Grand Line, why not come with me? This got everyone's attention as they all stared at him. Huh? They all said. You still plan on being a pirate, right? If you're heading to the Grand Line, why not join my crew? Whoa, hold on, kid, Karn yelled. After all the crap he put us through, you want him to join your crew just like that? Yeah. Luffy said, causing all the chefs to fall over. You're asking me to join you? Jin said in equal shock. Sure. You're strong, and I need crewmates. What do you say? Luffy asked. Jin just stared at him before he looked back at the boat. Luffy kept a blank face as the wind gently blew through. Jin placed a foot onto the edge of the boat before smile crept onto his face, and he kicked it off to sail out without him. You know what, kid? Jin asked before he looked back at him. Why not? What have I got to lose? Luffy laughed as everyone just stared before they heard a growling sound. I'm hungry. He said, causing almost everyone to fall over. Zeph was laughing, however. Then come on in. You saved our asses and this restaurant. What better way to pay you back than letting you stuff yourself? Yahoo! Luffy yelled as he practically broke the door down to find a table. What have I gotten myself into? Jin asked as a few beads of sweat fell down his face. After eating his fill, Luffy and Jin went to find Sanji, who was looking out at sea from a balcony. Hey Sanji. No. I'm not leaving. I'm staying until Zeph recognizes me as a chef. Sanji said without looking at him. Fine, I give up. Luffy said as he grabbed Sanji by the collar. Sanji shook him off and looked back at him. I can't leave yet, but someday I will. That's a promise. Sanji said. How about right now? Luffy asked as Jin just watched them go back and forth. It's not the right time, not yet. Sanji said. They all looked out at sea for some time before Sanji mumbled, there is one place. He then turned to the both of them with a wide smile. Either of you ever heard of the All Blue? The All Blue? They asked. You've never heard of it? Sanji asked, still smiling. Both Jin and Luffy listened as Sanji told them about this miracle sea that has fish from all the blues in it. That it was somewhere on the Grand Line and that he'd find it one day. While he talked, Zeph was looking at them all from above with a smile on his face. Sanji kept going on about the All Blue, but stopped when Patty shouted that lunch was served. Don't know how they still have food here. Jin said since he saw Luffy eat everything inside earlier. Forget it. Let's eat. Luffy said as the trio left for the kitchen. They walked in, only to find that there were no seats available. They got themselves some food and sat on the floor before starting to eat. As they did, someone asked who made the soup. I did. Sanji said. Good huh? Good? This slop is good. Patty yelled. I'd be amazed if the customers didn't vomit from one taste. What did you say? Sanji asked with a dark look on his face, which got worse as other chefs said that his soup was horrible. It really got bad when Zeph agreed with the chefs, which caused Sanji to lose it and to start screaming at the geezer. Zeph shocked them when he finally used his hands to strike Sanji, who left in a huff. What are you all talking about? Luffy asked. The soup's delicious. Can't argue with you there, Captain. Jin said. It just felt strange calling someone else Captain. Of course it is. Zeph said. Sanji's a great chef. Everyone here knows that. All the chefs were then saying how great his cooking is. But no matter what we say, that kid's too thick-headed to listen. Luffy ate more soup as Jin listened. Hey kid. You said you needed a cook for your ship, right? I wouldn't ask anyone for this, but can you take that kid with you? To the Grand Line. He smiled as he said that it was Sanji's dream. Man boss. Patty said. You sure made us put up quite the act. I thought we were found out because of your bad acting. Karn said. My acting? Patty laughed. Did you hear how bad you were acting? No way. Luffy said. Some of the chefs fell over at that, while Jin had starting choking on his food in surprise. What? Zeph said, now sounding angry. You said you wanted him to be your ship's cook earlier, what, he not good enough for you? Oh, he's good. Luffy said. But he wants to stay here and cook for this restaurant. I want him to join, but I won't force him. Luffy then started eating again before slapping Jin's back, making him cough up his food and breathe. Zeph was playing with his mustache as he spoke. So unless he agrees to come with, you won't take him, huh? Zeph asked. Right. More food please. Luffy said. Fair enough. But who knows if that hard-headed twerp will agree to join you? Zeph said. Luffy asked for more food as his hockey picked up on Sanji hanging outside the door. Sanji was trying to light up a cigarette but failed as he sat with his arms on his knees and his head down. I can hear you all, you bastards. Sanji said in a quiet tone. Meanwhile, Luffy, Jin, and the chefs were eating but were interrupted by something crashing through the wall. Everyone looked to see Yusaku stuck in the mouth of a pan shark with Sanji underneath them both. It's Yusaku. Luffy said in a calm voice. Do you come for the food, Yusaku? Luffy asked with a smile. Do you even notice the pan shark that has him in his mouth? Jin asked with a few sweat drops. Everyone pried Yusaku out of its mouth before they sent the fish away and gave Yusaku a blanket and some food. What are you doing here, Yusaku? Luffy asked. Weren't you going after Nami? Actually big bro, we couldn't catch up to Nami. Yusaku said. But we did know where she was going. If it's that island, we're gonna need your strength big bro Luffy. Where we're going could mean death. Let's hurry then. Luffy, then we should get going. Yusaku said before he noticed Jin. Big bro Luffy. He's part of my crew now. Luffy explained. Anyway, let's go. All three were heading out to leave, but were stopped by Sanji, who was leaning against the rails. Your dream's crazy kid. He said. But so is mine. Guess now's the best time to go. Why not start looking right now? They all looked at him as he turned to them. Sanji? Luffy asked. I'll join you on your journey to be king of the pirates. Sanji said as he looked at him. I want to be the cook for your ship, okay? That alright? Yeah, of course Luffy said with a grin before he and Yusaku started dancing and singing. Jin just stared in utter confusion. How can a guy that strong act so childish? He asked himself. Sanji turned to the chefs behind them all. You all happy now? He asked grumpily, but he smirked at their faces. Sorry. I'll go now. And sorry that you had to do some shitty acting. You knew. Patty yelled. I heard everything assholes. Sanji said as he looked at Zeph. Stomping on my pride huh? Was that all you could think of to get me to leave, you shitty geezer? You wanna fight Sanji? Patty yelled before Zeph stopped him. I've always hated children. He said. I've always regretted letting a brat like you live Sanji. TCH. Fine. Have fun with your crappy life, you stupid old man. Sanji said before he turned to the three of them. I'm gonna get my stuff. Wait for me by the ship. As they got ready to leave, Luffy was packing food for the trip when Zeph approached him, offering him his logbook. Thanks, but no thanks pops. That's your adventure in there. I'm going out there to make my own adventure. Luffy said. Zeph smirked before leaving as Luffy was still packing. After some time, all the chefs were outside on the patched-up fin as the trio were in the boat, waiting for Sanji so they could depart. Finally, Sanji stood in the doorway with his gear, taking a last look around before walking towards the ship. Patty and Karn attacked him as a last goodbye, to which Sanji took them both out with 2 kicks and kept walking till he got to the edge of the fin. Let's go. He said. No goodbyes? Luffy asked. Nah. Sanji said as he was about to get on the boat. Sanji's F called from the balcony, stopping him in his tracks. Be careful out there kid. Sanji just froze as tears came to his eyes. Luffy gave a soft smile as he remembered what happened next. Chef's Sanji yelled before spinning around and bowing till his head hit the Baratie's deck. Thank you for all you've done for me and for all your kindness. I owe my life to you old man. Thank you. Sanji stayed there on the deck crying, which was soon followed by Zeph and all the chefs on the Baratie. Bye Patty yelled out, getting Sanji's attention. This is sad. Really sad Karn yelled out as well, both with tears in their eyes. We're gonna miss you Sanji. This place won't be the same without you. Everyone was saying how they'd miss him as Sanji smiled through his tears. Sanji. Zeph said with bloodshot eyes. Real men should part ways without words, let alone tears. Sanji finally got in the boat after regaining some control. Let's go set sail Luffy shouted as they unfurled the sails and sailed off. Sanji was still crying as he waved back to them all. I'll see you all again he shouted before smiling. It's a promise, you crazy bastards. He didn't stop until they couldn't see the Baratie anymore. With Nami, the weather's nice. Nami said as she sailed towards her home island. As she stared ahead on the bow of the Going Merry, her mind wandered to her friends that she had just stolen from. Luffy everyone. She chalked out as tears started falling from her eyes. Maybe one day they'll let me be with them again. She started trembling as she hugged herself. If I ever meet them again Belmere. Why don't I help you Luffy? Nami froze. Time felt like it stopped as she stared on at the ocean. You've seen how strong I am Nami. Nami fell to her knees as bottom lip quivered. I can beat him. Luffy was all she said before she cried her heart out to the heavens. Chapter 13. It was some time later as the 4 of them sailed to where Nami was. Yusaku was looking blue in the face at where they were going. So how much longer till we get there again Yusaku? Luffy asked. Yusaku looked up at him. Quite a while. He said before he pointed at them all. But still, you guys aren't taking this seriously. You said that you knew where Nami was going and why she betrayed you, correct? Yeah. Luffy said. Then you should also know that the place we're going to is ruled by Arlong he said. Yeah. Nami told me about him. Luffy s. What do you know about him? Jin asked. That he's a fishman, a pirate and worth 20 million beris. Yusaku said. 20 million? Jin thought. That's higher than Krieg's bounty. So? Luffy asked, causing Yusaku to fall over. Don't you realize how dangerous he is? Yusaku yelled before he stood up. Alright. Looks like I'm gonna have to give you all a history lesson. First off, you plan to head to the Grand Line with only 6 crewmates. I'll get more in the Grand Line. Luffy said. What does that have to do with this fishman Arlong? Jin asked. Simple. Deep in the Grand Line, there are 3 powers there. one of which is the 7 warlords. Yusaku said. 7 warlords? Sanji asked. Who are they? They're pirates approved by the world government. Yusaku said. Say what? Jin said in surprise. Since when does the world government approve of pirates? They give them a portion of their treasure and in return are left alone. Other pirates refer to them as government dogs. Yusaku explained. You've already met one of them. Hawkeye Mihik. Sanji looked on with slight curiosity. Jin however was tensing up as sweat formed on his forehead. That Hawkeye decimated a 50-ship fleet like it was nothing. He thought. And there are 6 more people as strong as him. This is insanity. Do these warlords have anything to do with where we're going? Sanji asked, snapping Jin out of his thoughts. Yeah. One of the warlords is Jinbei, leader of the fishmen pirates. In exchange for him being a warlord, he released a monster into the East Blue. Arlong. Yusaku said. Since coming here, he's taking over 20 villages and resides in a place called Arlong Park. He's insanely strong, easily stronger than even Don Krieg. He's devastating. Why would Nami go there? Sanji asked before a blush came to his face as he thought about her as a mermaid. Anyway, I'm hungry. Sanji, make me some food. Luffy said. Yusaku and Jin nodded at the thought of food as well, even though Yusaku thought that he was being naive. Right. Sanji said. I'm on it. There's the Mary, Usopp said as he spotted her on the shore. Yeah, but what's it doing over there? Johnny asked. He looked at a map to find that it was anchored between Cocoyasi and Gosa village. Either way, we know she's here. So let's get ready to fight. Zoro said as he flicked his white sword from its sheath a bit. Are you crazy? Both Usopp and Johnny shouted. Luffy's orders were to bring Nami back. Zoro said as he placed one foot on the bow of the ship. And that's what I'm going to do. He didn't get a chance to do anything though as Johnny and Usopp knocked him out with hammers. Pull up alongside the Mary. Usopp said as he stood up with confidence. You seem more eager now that we're avoiding Arlong Park. Johnny said. Hey, untie me, you bastard, Zoro yelled as he was tied to the cabin of the ship. Now Zoro. You're still hurt. Usopp said as he patted Zoro's chest, shooting pain throughout Zoro's body. See, you still need to rest. Usopp then stood up, declaring that this would be his grand adventure until he spotted 3 fishmen on the shore. Full speed ahead, Usopp yelled as they passed them all by. What are you doing? Zoro yelled. Shhhh, Johnny and Usopp said. They're fishmen. We can't fight them. Usopp said. Hey, that's a ship. One of the fishmen said before 2 swam towards the boat. Seeing this, Usopp and Johnny jumped overboard, leaving Zoro screaming at them to untie him. What happened to you? Asked a fishman. You exiled or something? Those must be battle scars then. Another said. I'm gonna kill them for this. Zoro thought as Johnny and Usopp swam towards the shore. When they saw the village, they couldn't believe their eyes. It's like a ghost town here. Johnny said. All the houses have been turned upside down. Usopp said before he saw Johnny take off. Where are you going? Looks like I found you. Said a figure behind Usopp. You must be that exile's friend. Screamed Usopp before he took off running. Phew. Sorry big bro Usopp. Johnny said from a hiding place. I'm gonna hold down the fort until our backup arrives. As Usopp ran, he kept a good distance away from the fishman, but was tripped by a little boy who wanted to kill him, thinking he was a fishman. He was stopped by a lavender-haired woman with heavy tattoos on her chest and her right shoulder. You know what happens if you attack the fishman? She said before she looked at Usopp. This guy's a human anyway. Barely though. Barely. Usopp yelled before they heard the fishman approaching. I'll deal with this guy. Usopp said as he stood up and aimed at him with his slingshot. Special attack. Don't attack the fishman, Najiko said as she knocked Usopp out from behind. Where am I? Usopp asked as he woke up from his nap. About time you woke up. Najiko said from a table in the room. Usopp looked to see her and the kid from before. After a brief introduction, Usopp learned that the woman's name was Najiko and she and Nami are foster sisters and that the house they were in was theirs growing up. She then explained that their mother was long dead and only she lived there with Nami stopping in now and then and that she worked for Arlong. Wait. She's working for Arlong? Usopp asked in disbelief. Usopp then asked about their ship, to which Najiko pointed out the window to show it was there on the shore. Najiko explained that she joined up with Arlong and betrayed her own village. I can't believe it. She even turned on her whole village. Exactly. Najiko said. I can't believe it. Usopp said. Did Luffy know about this? He asked himself. Know about what? Najiko asked overhearing him. Usopp looked back at the ship out the window. When Nami took the ship, Luffy said she had her reasons. I bet Luffy didn't know that this was one of them. Even though she helped save my village and was smiling and laughing, she planned to stab us in the back this whole time. Smiling and laughing. Her? Najiko asked. They went on about how he came here to get back the ship and her, but since she betrayed them, he came for the ship. His jaw then hit the floor as he started sweating. What's wrong with you? I left a friend on our ship when we got here. He's probably caught by the fishmen now. I'm only going to ask one more time. Arlong said as he looked down at a tied-up Zoro. Why are you here? I told you, you half-fish bastard. I'm looking for a girl. Watch your tongue. Arlong said with sinister grin on his face. We fishmen are evolved humans who can breathe on both land and in the water. That makes us the lords of creation, and defying us is going against nature. I'm getting tired of hearing you spout that crap, Arlong. Nami said as she walked out of the doorway behind him, stunning Zoro. Oh, but you, Nami. You're above them all, my trusted navigator. What the? Why are you acting all friendly with them, Nami? Zoro asked. You know this guy? Arlong asked. He's just another idiot who I got friendly with to steal his treasure. Nami said as she approached Zoro and sat down until she was eye level with him. When she did, Zoro got a look at the tattoo on her arm, which looked exactly like Arlong's Jolly Roger. That tattoo? He said in shock. That's right. I'm a part of Arlong's crew. She said with a grin. Everything we've been through has been nothing but an act. Zoro just glared at her. Did Luffy know? He asked. What? Nami said, her smile fading. When you stole the ship, Luffy defended you by saying you had your reasons and nothing else. Did he know that you would steal from us? Nami froze for a moment but remained calm. HMPH. He's just an idiot as well. She said. Shahahaha. Arlong laughed. This is the real Nami, nothing but a cold-hearted, money lover. Not even the death of her mother shook her up. Arlong said. Zoro watched as Nami's eyes widened in pain at that before he smirked and leapt back into the water. Most of the fishmen there said. Is he trying to swim away? Even if he tried, that human can't do anything tied up like that. Just leave him to drown. Arlong said. That idiot. Nami thought before she jumped in after him, making all the fishmen watch in disbelief. She surfaced with him moments later, both coughing a bit for air. Would you do that? She asked. I could ask you the same question. Heartless, huh? Zoro said with a smirk. Nami only scowled before punching his wounds, making him double over. Tie him up. I'll deal with him later. Nami said. Arlong? Screamed a fishman. What is it, my brother? Arlong asked. There was another human with a long nose. He got away, and I think he's hiding in Cocoyasi village. Said the fishman. Usopp. Zoro thought. That moron was found out. Cocoyasi, huh? Arlong said with a grin. What a coincidence. I have business there as well. Later in Cocoyasi village, Arlong and some of his crew came and surrounded a heavily scarred man with a pinwheel in his hat. You're the one that was found with weapons, huh? Arlong asked. That's right. Genzo said. It's just a hobby of mine to collect them. That's against the rules. Weapons are forbidden in my town. Arlong said. As they were talking, Usopp and Najiko were looking from a safe distance. That's Arlong. Usopp whispered. That's him. Najiko said. He's got 20 villages under his control. She explained about the tribute that they needed to pay to keep their lives. If even one person doesn't pay the monthly tribute, he destroys it. That's insane, Usopp said. Najiko explained that those were the rules and that they wouldn't think twice about killing a human. She stopped when she heard a yell, knowing who it came from. Genzo, she yelled as she ran to confront Arlong, who was holding a beaten Genzo up in the air with one hand. What are you doing? We've been paying the tribute. No one here has any intent to rebel. Let him go. This human had weapons. Arlong said. Even having them is a sign of rebellion. To show you all that it will not be tolerated, he dies. Everyone began to protest but stopped at Genzo's orders. You all must live or the last 8 years will be for nothing. Genzo said. All the villagers stopped at that while Arlong laughed before raising him into the air. Let this be a lesson to you all, he screamed before he brought Genzo's head toward the ground. Exploding star, Usopp yelled as he shot at Arlong. The explosion caused him to release Genzo and everyone to look up at him. Who are you? One of them asked. I am Captain Usopp, Usopp shouted as he stood dramatically with his legs shaking. I am a man feared around the world. I have 8,000 men under my control. Leave now, and I may spare you fishmen. You can bring 100,000 men. Arlong said in a low voice. I'll tear them to pieces. Even though you're just a scrawny human, he said before looking at him in a crazed manner. You dare attack me, you human filth. My threats and attacks didn't faze him at all. Usopp screamed in his head as Arlong grabbed a building. Usopp screamed as Arlong's crew begged him to calm down and stop. If you destroy the village, our funds decrease. Then we'll take over a different one, Arlong said before he threw the building into another one, smashing both as the villagers cried out for their village. Usopp appeared from the wreckage with almost no damage before he took off, with Arlong being held back by his crew and taken to Arlong Park to cool off. The other half of the crew chased after Usopp while the villagers gathered around Genzo, asking that he go and get treated for his injuries. Hi everyone. Came a voice. Everyone turned to see it was Nami holding some flowers. Everyone turned away and ignored her as she walked through. She looked at the damage with a sad look. This looks like Arlong's doing. That's right. Najiko said. They talked for a bit before Nami went to a lone grave which consisted of a small wooden cross on a hill. She placed the flowers next to it before sitting down and staring out at sea. Only 7 million bearers left. She said. As infamous as ever. Najiko said as she watched her sit there. I'm a pirate, but Arlong knows better. He knows that money is best, so I only have a little to go to keep up our bargain. Soon, I'll buy the village from him. Nami said with a smile. Najiko smiled as she sat down next to her. They both stared out before curiosity got the better of Najiko. Hey Nami. Does the name Luffy mean anything to you? She asked. Nami sat up straight but kept her gaze at the sea. Luffy? She asked. Why do you ask? Someone mentioned his name, a Captain Usopp. She said. Nami rolled her eyes at Captain Usopp but kept listening. Is Luffy the owner of that ship you came here on? Yeah. Nami said as she lowered her head. So he's a pirate, huh? Right. And you stole from him like any other pirate. Is this going somewhere? Nami asked as she finally looked at her sister. That long-nosed visitor said that the only one who didn't get angry when you took their ship and treasure was this Luffy guy. Najiko said. Nami just stared at her as her eyes widened a bit. Really? Yeah. He said something about Luffy knowing why you did it. Now how would he have known about that? She asked as she leaned her head into her hand. Nami only looked back out to the sea before she got a gloomy look on her face. I told him. She said in a low voice. I don't know why, but something about Luffy just made me feel safe to tell him. First time I've ever heard you trusting someone else besides me and Genzo. Najiko said. Nami sighed before a small smile crept onto her face. You know what he said when I told him? Nami asked before she looked at her sister. What? He offered to kill Arlong for me. Nami said. He what? Najiko said as her eyes widened. He does know who Arlong is, right? He does. Nami said before she looked back at the grave. Even so, he said he'd do it. That's why I stole the ship when I had the chance. Nami placed her knees to her chest with her arms and head in her knees. Nami? Najiko asked before she noticed Nami trembling a bit. You okay? I'm fine. It's just, Nami said. Memories of Luffy came to her as tears filled her eyes. Even though it's suicide to fight Arlong, just knowing that he wanted to fight him, Nami said, unable to continue as her tears fell. Najiko just put a caring hand on her shoulder as Nami cried as she looked at the ocean. For Nami to trust someone with something so painful. Najiko thought. I don't know who you are, Luffy, but thank you for caring for Nami. She can tell me to leave all she likes. Zoro said as he sat in Arlong's seat. I'm not leaving until Luffy says otherwise. He stared around at the unconscious fishman who tried to take him out a moment ago until the sound of a trumpet got his attention. He walked over and hung off the wall to see an octopus fishman holding up a roasted pig. You blowing a trumpet or something? He asked. Whoa, who are you? My name's Hachi. Are you a guest? Hachi said quickly. A guest? Something like that. Zoro said. Oh, well, Arlong's not here right now. If you want, I can give you a lift to Cocoyasi village, where he is now. Hachi said as he pointed at a pot. Sure, why not? Zoro said as he jumped into the pot. Hachi then jumped into the sea and took the pot to Cocoyasi village. What happened? Arlong screamed as he saw his fellow fishmen scattered about in Arlong Park. My brethren, Arlong yelled. Was it Zoro who did this? No. Gasped the fishman that was lying in front of Arlong. That green-haired man, that was Zoro. What? Arlong said before another fishman named Chu came in dragging Usopp by his nose. I caught him, Arlong, Chu, but I let him live so you could kill him. Chu said as he dropped Usopp to the ground. Usopp screamed before he tried to say that what he did was how his people say hello. Arlong then decided to use him as bait to get Zoro to come back. While Usopp tried to get out of it by talking, Hachi came back to see the damage. What happened? He screamed. Hachi? Arlong said. Where were you? I was giving a guest of yours a lift to Cocoyasi village. That's where you said you were. But what's with all this? He said as his 6 arms pointed at all the damage. The pirate hunter's Oro, that's what. Arlong said. Curse that Zoro, Hachi said. If I had seen him, none of this would have happened. What guest were you talking about? A fishman named Karubi asked. The lone swordsman with green hair. Hachi said before his eyes shot open wide. Was that him? Who else, Dumbus? The other fishman shouted. This could be Nami's doing. Karubi said. She could have brought him here to come after you. She is a deceitful woman after all. Other fishmen were starting to agree until Nami spoke up. Enough, Nami shouted. I swore on this tattoo to serve under you until I got enough money. I almost have enough, so why would I do something stupid now? Heh. You're right. Arlong said. Sorry for doubting you. But now, all we need to do is wait for Zoro to arrive to pick up his little friend. He said as he had a dagger placed into the ground almost cutting Usopp's nose. He got caught. Zoro said. Yeah, and they took him to Arlong Park. One of the citizens in Cocoyasi village said. Usopp you dumbass, Zoro thought before he took off towards Arlong Park. Back with the four in the boat, they were enjoying their food before Mamu, a giant sea cow that listens to Arlong, rose up next to their boat. Yusaku freaked out at seeing it, Sanji and Luffy stared at it, and Jin froze with a fork halfway between his plate and his mouth. "Sea monster," Yusaku yelled as Mamu sniffed the air around them, clearly smelling their food. "What does it want? It's probably just hungry," Sanji said. "Then give it the food already," Yusaku yelled. Before they could do anything, Luffy stepped up to the side of the ship as Mamu lowered himself towards their boat. Luffy released his spiritual pressure. Mamu looked frightened as he lowered himself under Luffy. "What was that?" Sanji said while taking deep breaths. "What did you do?" Jin asked in a quiet voice as Yusaku just stared with wide eyes. Luffy then gave a small explanation before picking up some food. "I'm in a good mood, cow, so I'll give you some food," Luffy said before he glared at Mamu. "But if you try to attack us I will kill you. Got it?" Mamu slowly nodded, causing Luffy to smile and throw some food at him. Mamu ate the food and mooed happily as Luffy took some rope and tied it around Mamu's horns. "Okay cow, take us to Arlong Park." As Mamu took off, the other three stared at him. They just aimed that sea king like it was a puppy, Yusaku thought. "Who is this guy?" All three of them thought as Luffy laughed. Back at Arlong Park, with all the fishmen distracted, Usopp tried to take his slingshot out but was stopped when Nami smacked him with her staff. He flew away a bit before skidding to a stop. "It's not a good idea to attack the fishmen," she said as she picked up a knife. Usopp looked up at her before spitting some blood away. "So this is the real you, huh, Nami?" he asked as he got up. "Just a witch that gets close to pirates and then robs them blind." "That's right. And since you're interfering with my business, I realize it was a mistake to let you guys follow me," Nami said as she held up the knife with a dead look in her eyes. "Time to die, Usopp." "Oh man. She's not kidding around," Usopp thought. "Only got one chance to run." He then pulled out his slingshot and shot a smoke star at the ground, covering the whole area. "Good. I'm out of here." "Sorry, Usopp," came Nami's voice from the smoke before a stabbing sound was heard. "Nami, why?" Usopp squeaked as blood fell on the ground. As the smoke cleared, everyone saw what looked like Nami stabbing Usopp. She pulled the knife out as Usopp slowly fell into the water. All the fishmen cheered as Johnny cried a safe distance away, thinking the worst had happened. "This can't be," he whispered before he ran off. "Heh. Guess I was wrong about you. You're one of us," Karubi said. "Whatever," Nami said as she walked out of Arlong Park. "Master Cow," Luffy yelled from the bow of the ship as the sea cow pulled them toward an island in the distance. "Is that where we're going?" Sanji asked. "That's the place," Yusaku shouted as he saw a giant building beyond a steel gate in the water. "That's Arlong Park." "So what now?" Jin asked. "We charge in like reckless idiots. First we find the others," Luffy said. "Then we charge in." He then pulled the ropes to the right as they neared the island. "Your work is done, cow. What are you doing?" Sanji shouted. "Hold on guys," Luffy said before a white cloth appeared from his sleeve. "Senten Hakuja, Luffy. Senten Hakuja." A long, white piece of cloth is spun around to incorporate targets within its coils. As the cloth tightens, with a white flash, it teleports the targets to another location. "Why we are in the sky, Yusaku. I teleported us." Luffy. "Be more on," Sanji yelled as he and the other two hung on for dear life. "Would you do that anyway, Sanji?" "Because one of our crew is this way," he answered calmly as the ship hit the ground but kept plowing through the trees. "What's that sound?" Zoro asked himself as he looked to his left. He got his answer when a boat came flying out of the trees right at him. His mouth fell open before the boat ran him over. It kept going until it crashed into some wetlands. "That was fun." Luffy laughed as he walked out of the wreckage. "No, it wasn't." Sanji groaned as he and the others were under the wreckage. "What are you doing?" Zoro yelled as they all finally got out of the remains of the ship. "Sorry about that." "Hey Zoro," Luffy said with a smile. "Where's Nami, Johnny, and Usopp?" "Usopp," Zoro said before he ran off. "Usopp got caught. We gotta go help him." "Too late," Johnny said as he slowly walked towards them all with tears in his eyes. "He's already gone." "Gone?" Yusaku asked. "I saw the whole thing," Johnny said through his tears. "Big bro Usopp was murdered by big sis Nami," he screamed. All but Luffy looked at him in shock. "He's alive," Luffy said in a calm voice. But I saw it," Johnny said as the tears fell again. "I know what I saw. Nami's nothing but a cold-hearted woman," he said before he started ranting on and on. Luffy finally sighed before he took a deep breath. "Will you shut up already?" he shouted, causing all of them to freeze. Everyone looked at him as Luffy just stared at the sky. "Usopp's alive. I can sense him." "I don't know what you saw, Johnny, but Usopp's alive. As for Nami, she's not one to take someone's life, especially her friends," Luffy said. "Friend huh?" came a voice behind them all. Everyone looked to see Nami walking towards them all with a bandage around her left hand. She looked at them all like they were nothing but utter pests. Her face softened when she saw Luffy, who looked right back at her. She closed her eyes as she gave a soft sigh. "Why did you all come here?" "To get you back, of course," Luffy said with a small smile. "I saw what you did," Johnny shouted as he pointed wildly at Nami. "What happened to Big Bro Usopp?" Nami just looked at them all with her eyes now hidden by her bangs. "Don't worry. He's alive," she said. "He is? Really?" Johnny said. "Hi Nami," Sanji said in love mode. "Remember me? Let's fly away together." "Wait a minute," Johnny shouted. "What about all the blood I saw?" "That was mine," she said as she held up her bandaged hand. "See guys?" Luffy said with his arms crossed and a big smile on his face. "She's not a bad person." Nami just stared at Luffy as she felt her eyes well up a bit. She turned away from them all before she spoke again. "I'm sorry I stole from you all. If you want your ship back, it's docked near my house. I'll bring it to you guys later. But for now, don't cause any trouble on this island and stay out of our affairs." "Alright," Luffy said as he fell down to the ground. "Captain?" Jin asked. "I'm gonna take a nap," he said. Nami couldn't help but smile to herself at Luffy's carefree attitude. "Idiot," she thought before she walked off. "So what now?" Zoro asked. "We sit back and relax. We're not leaving unless she comes with us, and that's final." "Luffy, is that really all we're doing?" Jin asked in disbelief. "Captain's orders," Zoro said as he sat in the middle of the road. Jin only sighed as he walked off and sat down in the grass. Sanji sat down in the shade of a tree smoking a cigarette. These guys are too laid back, Johnny and Yusaku thought. Somewhere else on the island, Usopp was running down the road with a cloak around him. He was thinking back to when Nami pretended to stab him but stabbed her hand instead. As he did, he saw his crew up ahead and ran towards them with his cloak falling off. He didn't hear Sanji shouting at Zoro in defense of Nami and unknowingly ran between a kick and a hard fist. "Usopp," Sanji said. "He's alive," Zoro said. "Well maybe." Usopp, Luffy shouted. He wanted to wake up and prevent this from happening like last time but was too sleepy to wake up. "How'd this happen?" "Sorry. It was mine and Zoro's fault," Sanji said as he pointed his finger at Zoro. "No, just your fault," Zoro said as Usopp looked up at Luffy. "Luffy, you're here?" "Yep. I sure am," he said with a smile. "I'm here too," Sanji said. Usopp got up and in his face as he started threatening to kill him. "Hey, a full recovery." "Shut up," Usopp shouted. "By the way, we heard Nami faked your death," Zoro said in a bored tone. "Huh?" Usopp said as he blinked at that. "Oh yeah. Something strange is happening on this isle. What's he doing here?" Usopp said he now noticed and pointed at Jin. "Finally realized I was here, huh?" Jin said. "Now that you mention it, why are you here?" Zoro asked. "I asked him to join us," Luffy said, earning confused looks from both of them. After a quick explanation, they both still stared. "So you asked him to join?" Usopp said. "Yeah. He's heading to the Grand Line as well, so why not?" Luffy said. "Heading back to the matter at hand," Zoro said. "What are we going to do about Nami? She doesn't seem to want to leave for some reason. Why is she working for some fishmen anyway?" Yusaku asked. "Not that it's any of your business," someone said. Everyone looked up the hill to see Nijiko looking at them all. "But Nami's got a good reason as to why she's working for them." "Who's that?" Johnny asked. "Nijiko," Usopp said. "Who?" "Nami's big sister." "No wonder she's hot," Sanji said with hearts in his eyes. Nijiko looked at them all with slight annoyance and curiosity. "Which one of you is Luffy?" she asked. "I'm Luffy." "Hi," he said. "So that's Luffy, huh?" Nijiko thought. "He doesn't look like he can fight. What's with that smile?" "What do you want with us?" Jin asked. "Hey. Have a little grace when addressing a lady," Sanji said as he took a puff of his smoke. "But he does have a point," Zoro said. "Is there something you need?" "I need you all to leave Nami alone," Nijiko said. "If you're curious about why she's working for them, I'll tell you. But if that doesn't get you to leave, I don't know what will." Well, some were curious, Luffy already knew. "I know why, so I'll pass," he said as he walked up the hill. "Where are you going?" Usopp shouted. "Just a walk," he answered back as he kept walking. As he did, Nijiko explained to the others about Nami's past, why she acts the way she does, and her deal with Arlong. To buy the village from him with one payment of 100 million beris. As they talked, Luffy kept on walking until he spotted 3 fishmen walking his way. Luffy kept walking right past them. "Hey you," Hachi shouted. "Me?" Luffy asked after he took a few more steps. "Yeah, you. Who are you and why are you here? Why do you care?" he asked. "It's oh well, we don't get many visitors," Hachi said after thinking a bit. "I'm Luffy. I'm just going for a walk." "A walk?" Hachi said before he pulled out 6 hankies and waved them at Luffy. "Well, have a nice walk then." Luffy waved back at him. "Hey asshole, where you going?" Karubi barked. "Don't know. Just a walk," Luffy said before he went walking again. Well, the fishmen were talking about how he wasn't afraid of them, Nijiko finished her story. Do you understand now? She asked. So that's why she did all that? Usopp said. Sanji was all for kicking the fishmen's asses, but was knocked to the ground by Nijiko. No, if you attack them, they'll kill us. If Arlong thinks you're friends with Nami, then they'll get suspicious of her, and everything she's done will have been for nothing. Please, just leave the island. Nothing is more difficult for Nami than for others to call her friend. Back in Cocoyasi village, a group of marines were walking through being led by a marine captain. Excuse me, I'm Captain Izumi, head of the Marine 16th branch. Said the rat-looking captain. My name is Genzo. Are you in need of our assistance? Genzo asked. Yes. I need you to take me to see a woman named Nami. The captain said with a smile. Just 7 million more bearers. Nami said. Then I can buy the village from Arlong. Then everyone can finally smile from the heart again. She sighed with a smile as she looked outside before chuckling. Maybe Luffy might help. She couldn't help but have her mind wander to that silver-haired idiot. Luffy was walking through Cocoyasi village until he spotted Genzo leading a group of marines through the village. Do you mind telling me what your business is with Nami? Genzo asked. That need not concern you. Just take me there. Nizumi said as they walked right past Luffy and into a space between some houses. Luffy watched as they all left. Luffy decided to follow them. Well, time to go on one last voyage. Nami said as she walked outside her home. She stopped when she saw Genzo and a group of marines approach her. What? I'm Nizumi. Captain of the Marine 16th branch. I'm here about your thievery. Thievery? Nami said before she crossed her arms. Well, I am a pirate, but I'm with Arlong's crew. Try anything here and Arlong won't let it slide. Well, this is news to me. Nizumi said. I've received no information of you with pirates. I'm here on other business. Hi Nami. Luffy said from behind the group. Everyone looked to see him grinning and waving. Nice tangerine grove. Who are you? Nizumi asked. Luffy? Nami said. What are you doing here? I was taking a walk and followed these guys. That's all. Luffy said. Anyway, back to business. Nizumi said. I heard that you've been stealing from pirates. Since the victims are pirates, I won't hold any charges against you. However, stealing is stealing. As such, it is our job as Marines to return all stolen articles to their rightful owner. Wait, what? Nami said in shock. In short, all the money you've stolen is to be handed over to me immediately. Nizumi said with a creepy grin. Search the house. Yes, sir. Replied the Marines as they went into Nami's house, despite her protests. Arlong has killed many people and taken over many towns, yet you ignore him and come after one petty thief. Nami screamed. Is that any way a petty thief should talk to a Marine officer? Nizumi said. Sir, nothing in the house, but these orchards look suspicious. One of the Marines said. Dig up the fields. Nizumi ordered. Stay away from Bellemere's tangerine trees, Nami shouted as she attacked some Marines with her staff. That money isn't for you, it's to save all our lives here at the village. Genzo finished for Nami, startling her. You knew Genzo? She asked. Everyone knew Nami. After you joined Arlong, none of us could believe it. So we asked Nijiko and she told us about your deal. Then why didn't you say anything? Nami said. If you knew that we knew, we feared it would be too much to take. We thought you'd feel too obligated to help us in case you wanted to run, so we kept our mouths shut about everything. Genzo? Nami said in a quiet voice. If that's true, then should I arrest the whole village for harboring a thief? Nizumi asked with a grin. We decided to fight for ourselves since it was useless to put our hopes on you clowns. Nijiko said as she appeared. If you're not here to arrest Arlong, then get lost. Pretty bold to be talking to me like that. Nizumi said as he turned to his men. What's taking so long to find it? It's 100 million bearers for crying out loud. This shocked Nami, Genzo, and Nijiko. How did you know it was that much? Genzo shouted. The amount? Lucky guess. Nizumi said. Nami froze as Arlong's horrible laugh came to her mind. Arlong? She thought. Arlong sent you here, didn't he? She screamed. Arlong? What makes you say that? Nizumi said with a sinister grin that said all that was needed. Before anyone could say anything else, all the Marines except Nizumi fell to the ground out cold. What happened? Nizumi said as he looked at all his fallen men. What are you all doing, was what he said before a fist was shoved into his gut. Nizumi was stunned before he fell to his knees and passed out. That guy was getting on my nerves. Luffy said as he turned to the stunned three. Who are you? Genzo said. Ichimaru Luffy. Pirate. Luffy said with a grin. While Genzo and Nijiko just stared at the scene before them, Nami was trembling where she stood before she took off. Arlong. Ah, my trusted navigator. Something wrong? Arlong asked. The Marines just came to my house to steal my money. What's going on? She said as she walked up to him. The Marines, huh? That's a shame. Cut the crap, she said as she grabbed him by his shirt. What about our deal? You said you'd rather die than break a deal involving money, didn't you? That's right. And have I broken my promise? He asked. Don't lie to me, you sent, Nami said before Arlong grabbed her face, covering her mouth with his hand as he glared at her with a grin. Have I broken my promise? He said. If the Marines took your money, that's too bad. Until you pay me the full sum in one go, I won't let you or your village go. You monster, Nami thought as tears ran down her face. What's wrong, Nami? Thinking of running away? Of course, if you try that, I'll kill everyone in the village. He said with a laugh as he let her go. Nami just glared at him before she ran off with tears in her eyes. Nice plan, Arlong. Chu said. Of course. I'm not letting her go until she makes a map of everywhere. Arlong said. Too bad it'll take decades. Chu said before they all started laughing. While this was happening, Joni and Yusaku were walking towards Arlong Park. They heard Nami's story and were ready to fight Arlong for her. There it is. Johnny said as he spotted the Arlong Park in the distance. Time to kick that fishman's ass. Right behind you, partner, Yusaku said. They both glared at the building before he stopped. By the way, he said. What? Johnny asked when he noticed Yusaku stopped walking. Yusaku kept his eyes on the ground before he looked back at Johnny. On the way here to this island, Big Bro Luffy asked something crazy. He said. Flashback, Lamu was still pulling the boat in the direction of the island as Luffy, Jin, Sanji, and Yusaku were holding on. Hey, Yusaku. Luffy said. Yeah, big bro. You and Johnny wanna join my crew? He asked. Huh? Yusaku said as he stared at Luffy like he grew an extra head. I'm looking for crewmates, and you and Johnny are cool. So what do you say? Flashback ends. He asked if we wanted to join his crew. Johnny asked in disbelief. Doesn't he know we're pirate hunters? He does, but he still wants us to join. Crazy, huh? Yusaku said. I'll say. Johnny said before they both laughed until they were just outside the gate. We're here, right? Yusaku said. He and Johnny both had their swords out before they both took a deep breath. We've come for the head of Arlong. Chapter 14. Back at the village, everyone saw Genzo and Nijiko, both with pure anger across their faces. Hey Genzo, what's wrong? One of the villagers asked. Genzo was trembling with rage as he looked at everyone. Those Marines from earlier. He hissed. Oh no. Someone said. Did Arlong kill them? No. Nijiko said. Arlong sent them. Everyone just looked at her confused. Those Marines were acting on Arlong's orders to steal Nami's money. Genzo said. Everyone just stared as his words sunk in. Then that means. They lied to Nami. Even though they failed to get their hands on her money, I doubt Arlong will give up. Genzo said before he got a determined look in his eyes. Spread word to the whole village. Tell everyone to meet here and to gather whatever weapon they have. Nami was running back towards her village as fast as she could. Genzo, Nijiko, everyone please, don't do anything rash, she said. Everyone gathered in the village with makeshift weapons in hand, each scared but determined. 8 years ago, Genzo said. We made a vow to live our lives, despite what Arlong threw at us. That as long as Nami fought, we would endure until Nami honored her deal with Arlong. But it was all for nothing, he screamed out, getting everyone angry. Those bastards never intended to keep their promise, they never intend to let this village or Nami free, but now, we're going to make them pay for all the years they tricked a kind little girl who's with me. B-I-I, roared the whole village. Let's do this, we'll teach those rotten fishmen. Stop, someone shouted. Everyone looked to see Nami walking towards them with a smile on her face. Wait everyone, there's no need to fight them. They didn't get any of my money, so it'll only be one more trip and I'll have enough. Don't worry about it. Calm down everyone. Everyone watched her as she tried to keep them calm, but Genzo walked up to her and held her in a tight hug. Enough Nami. He said in a calm voice. Nami just stood there as tears threatened to fall from her eyes. There's no point. Even though they failed this time, Arlong will try something else to keep you from buying our freedom. There's no doubt about that. Genzo. Nami said in a choked up voice. Set yourself free Nami. Genzo said, shocking her. What? She said. Do it Nami. Nijiko said with a smile. Nijiko? She said. She looked around to see the whole village agreed. You're a smart girl, and you have a dream. Everyone stop, she said as she pulled out a knife. Stay where you are, I won't let you go to the fishmen, she said as she started trembling. You'll all die. We know. The village doctor said. Genzo walked up to her and grabbed the knife with his bare hands, causing them to bleed. Out of the way, he screamed at her. He then looked back at the crowd with his sword drawn. Move out. Let's show those fishmen what we're made of, someone screamed as they all ran off to fight the fishmen. Nami just stood there before the knife fell from her hands as she fell to her knees. All she could hear was Arlong's horrible laughter as her eyes darted towards the tattoo on her left shoulder. She placed her fingers on it, looking ready to rip it right off her shoulder. Arlong, she thought before she grabbed the knife and stabbed her shoulder, screaming out Arlong's name. Over and over she stabbed, each time speaking his name as blood fell from her shoulder. She kept going until she felt another hand grab her wrist. She looked up to see Luffy. "Luffy," she said before she dropped the knife. She looked back to the ground with her head down. She was quiet for some time as the tears continued to fall from her eyes. "They left. Yeah. I saw. They'll be killed. All of them," she said. "Even though I'm almost there, they still ran off to fight them." She sat there trembling as the thought of everyone she loved dying at the fishman's hands went through her mind. "I was so close. You know, the offer still stands, Nami," Luffy said. Nami just sat there for a moment before she raised her head. "Luffy, help me," she said as she looked at him with tears in her eyes. Luffy smiled at her and patted her head. "Even if you didn't ask, I was still gonna help, Luffy." "Thank you, Luffy." She couldn't stop the tears as Luffy walked off towards his crew, who were all waiting for his orders. "Let's go." "Right," they all said. All 5 then made their way to Arlong Park. "Whoa, what happened? Did Arlong do this to you guys?" All the villagers were outside the gate to Arlong Park, where they saw a beaten up Johnny and Yasaku leaning against the gate. "Step aside," Genzo said as Johnny looked up at them. "We've come to see the fishmen." After we heard the truth about Big Sis Nami, there was only one thing we could think to do. "Beat Arlong," Johnny said. "With that in mind, we came here to do that. But as you can see, he thrashed us easily." Yasaku finished. "Sorry, but we're not moving for you guys. Especially since you have no chance of victory," Johnny said. "What?" Genzo said. "Be patient. We're waiting for those guys to show up," Yasaku said. Everyone just looked at them in confusion. "Those guys?" Genzo asked. "I bet my life on it. Those guys will show up soon," Yasaku said. After a moment, both he and Johnny stood up with smiles on their faces. "There," they both said. Everyone looked behind them to see 5 people walking side by side towards them all. Jin, Zoro, Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp. "Those guys?" Nijiko asked. "Why would they help us?" Genzo asked. "If they can't beat Arlong, then not only this island, but the whole East Blue is finished," Yasaku said. "Etch those 5 into your minds. They're the men who'll change fate itself," Johnny said. Soon all 5 were near the crowd. "Move," Luffy said as they approached. As they did, Arlong's laugh could be heard inside. Luffy's glared angrily at that laugh. All the pain he made Nami go through was about to thrown back at him 100-fold. Everyone moved away from the gate as Luffy balled his hands into fists. He then punched the gate before it exploded. All the fishmen inside were staring with disbelief as the smoke cleared, showing one pissed off Luffy. "What the?" Arlong said with bloodshot eyes. "Which one of you is Arlong?" he asked. "Arlong?" Arlong asked as he lay in his chair looking at Luffy with a bored but annoyed expression. "I'm Arlong." "Good. I'm Luffy," Luffy said as he started walking towards Arlong. "Luffy? What are you supposed to be?" he asked. "The pirate." "Hey, wait a minute, you're that guy that likes to go on walks," Hachi shouted. "Where do you think you're going?" asked a fishman as he and another fishman blocked Luffy's path. "You want to talk to the boss, you gotta talk to us faster than anyone could blink." Luffy punched both fishmen into the air. They both flew so high that they couldn't be seen anymore. "Whoa," one of the villagers said as everyone stared in awe. "What do you want, pirate?" Arlong asked, looking quite pissed at seeing his fellow fishmen beaten like that. Luffy stood still for a moment before he appeared next to Arlong, punching him with blinding speed so that he flew through the wall on the other side of the park. All the villagers and other fishmen gasped at that as Luffy. "That's for making our navigator cry," Luffy shouted. Everyone stared in shock before some fishmen went to attack Luffy. "Back off, you're not worth the trouble," Sanji said as he kicked them all away. He then turned to Luffy and started scolding him for running in like that. "I'm not worried. I can handle them," Luffy said with a grin. "I don't care about that, you're gonna hog all the action," he yelled. "Don't worry about me guys," Usopp said. "Take all of them if you like." "Ready to go as always, Usopp," Zoro said as he rolled his eyes. "Can you even fight, Long Nose?" Jin asked. All the villagers just stared at the scene in front of them. "He blasted Arlong through the wall," one of them asked in disbelief. "No way. They're actually beating the fishmen." Soon all the villagers felt their hope of gaining their freedom rise. "Hey, I remember you tricked me, Urano," Zoro Hachi yelled while flailing his 6 arms wildly. He then screamed in fear at the sight of Usopp. "It's that long-nosed guy, how's he still alive?" "TCH. If he's alive, then the only reason is that bitch Nami let him live. I knew she was a traitor," Karubi snarled. Everyone went silent as Arlong's laugh could be heard from the other side of the wall before he walked out of the hole of himself. "The pirate, huh?" he laughed. "Now it's starting to make sense. You want her to navigate your ship." "Sorry, but she's mine," he declared. After those words, Hachi laughed. "You punks aren't worth Arlong's time," he said. "We know how to take care of you." He then began making trumpet-like sounds with his mouth. After a few moments, Mamu rose up from the water inside Arlong Park. All the villagers screamed as Mamu got closer to Hachi, stopping only when he spotted Luffy. "Oh, it's the sea cow again," Luffy said as he looked at Mamu. "I was wondering what happened to him," Sanji said. Mamu just stared at them both before looking a little sad. He remembered them giving him food and didn't want to hurt them, so he turned to leave, confusing the fishmen. Mamu stopped when Arlong called out to him, then seemed to get angry when Arlong finished speaking before turning to attack Luffy and his crew. Luffy sighed before glaring at while his releasing his pressure. Mamu stopped again, stunning everyone but Sanji, Jin, and Yusaku. He stopped that Sea King with just a glare. A lot of the villagers screamed. That pressure again. Zoro thought. Sorry Mamu. Luffy said before he appeared on his head. He then slammed his fist on Mamu's head knocking him out. Mamu Hachi screamed before looking at Luffy and his crew with rage in his eyes. Why you rotten humans, I'll teach you to treat our brethren like this. Alright you inferior human. Arlong said in a low tone. I've had about all I can tolerate from the likes of you. Calm down Arlong. Karubi said. You'll destroy Arlong Park if you go crazy. We're more than enough to beat these punks down. Choo Choo said as all the fishmen were ready to fight. Let us kill these weaklings, Hachi yelled. Alright. Arlong said as he grinned. Jin. Luffy said. You're up. Jin only grinned back as he brought out his tonfa and began to swing it around in circles. Heh. One human against all of us. A fishman said in a cocky tone. I'll take care of him. He then lunged at Jin, ready to take him out. Right as he swung his fist, Jin ducked to avoid the attack before swinging his tonfa around, smashing his head into the concrete. Everyone stared as he raised a bloody tonfa up with a dissatisfied frown as he looked at the villagers. These guys are a threat. He asked as he slowly swung his tonfa around again before grinning. Don't make me laugh. The villagers just stared while the fishmen looked ready to kill. Human trash, some of them shouted as they all charged at Jin. Jin just smiled as he began to fight them off, all the while grinning at them all. Two lunged at his back, only for Jin to backflip behind them. He then smashed their heads together with his tonfa, but was caught in a death grip by a third fishman. Gotcha, the fishman said as another was charging Jin from the front for the kill. Jin's eyes narrowed before he spun his tonfa in his hand, resting the heavy ball against his elbow, before raising it to smash it into his grappler's ribs. The attack caused the fishman behind him to let go just in time for Jin to dodge, causing the charging fishman to attack his comrade. As he stared at what he did, Jin spun around and smashed his tonfa into his head, sending both fishmen flying into the wall. He's beating them up like they're nothing. The doctor said as Karubi slowly walked towards Jin. Seems it'll take more to do away with you. He said. After I get rid of you, that bitch Nami is next. Hold it right there. Sanji said as he walked between Karubi and Jin. I won't stand by and let some fish freak insult a beautiful lady. A lady? Karubi asked skeptically. How you die for some stupid bitch? That's a laugh. Sanji got pissed as he removed his cigarette and glared at Karubi. One more insult and you're sushi asshole, he said in a dangerous tone. You hear me? Your skills are good for a human, but isn't chivalry from a pirate a little fake? Karubi said with a grin. I'm dead good at what I do. He said as he put his cigarette back in his mouth. And there's nothing fake about wanting to help a beautiful lady in need. Soon, both were facing off as Hachi glared at Zoro. You tricked me earlier, Rorano Zoro, he shouted. How dare you attack my brethren and then con me into giving you a lift to Cocoyasi. That's old news, Octo Freak. Zoro said as he grabbed the hilt of his blade with his hand. I don't care why you want me dead, but the tables have turned. He said as he slowly unsheathed his sword for everyone to see the glint of his blade. You're not the hunters anymore, fish freak. You're the hunted. As Hachi ran off to get his blades, Jin screamed in pain as he fell to his knees. The villagers looked to see him bleeding from the back of his right shoulder and left leg. While he had his back turned, Chu had fired 2 water shots from his mouth at Jin to cripple him. Bullseye. He said as he wiped his mouth. You're finished, screamed the last 2 fishmen as they both charged at Jin. Shit, my arm's in bad shape and I can't move, he thought as they were nearly upon him. Exploding Star, Usopp yelled as he fired 2 exploding pellets at the fishmen, sending them flying back and away from Jin. Take tea that, you rotten fish, Usopp yelled as his legs shook in fear. You're that long-nosed human that attacked Arlong before. Chu said as Usopp slowly turned to him with sweat and snot on his face. This time when we kill you, he said as he ran towards him. It'll be for good. Hey, Usopp shrieked as he ran past the villagers. Chu saw them all before stopping. Weapons, huh? Chu asked. Seems you all intend to rebel against us. Since that's the case, I have no choice but to kill you. He got ready to strike, but stopped when a flaming star hit him. Did you think it was that easy? Usopp yelled from a distance with his slingshot out. I'm your opponent. Chu glared at him before declaring he would die, which caused Usopp to turn and run with Chu in pursuit. Who is that guy? Genzo asked. Brave one moment, then cowardly the next. The doctor said as they all turned back to see Zoro face off against Hachi and Sanji against Karubi. Arlong stood up with a dark look on his face with a frown. "I've had enough games," he said as he glared at Luffy. Luffy just glared right back as his crew fought against a fishman. "Do you not understand my anger? My brethren are laid about, broken and bruised, I swear I'll kill every one of you inferior humans." Nami was back at her home, dressing the stab wound she gave herself. She tied a bandage around her shoulder before she left. "I've cried and complained long enough, everyone's fighting for their freedom," she thought. "I will too." The villagers watched from the broken gate, which was guarded by Johnny and Yasaku to keep them from getting themselves killed. While Jin was among the crowd having his wounds taken care of by the doctor, Hachi returned with a blade in each hand as he and Zoro were about to fight. "Behold Rarano," as Zoro, Hachi yelled. "Aside from another on Fishman Island, I am the strongest swordsman, you cannot hope to beat my six-sword style," as he yelled. Zoro tied his bandana around his head and placed his white blade in his mouth. "What's so great about that?" Zoro asked. "Johnny, Yasaku, lend me your blades." "Right, big bro," they both shouted as they threw their swords towards Zoro. "Catch. Ah, behold the power of my six-sword style octopus miracle swords," Hachi yelled as he waved his swords around while charging towards Zoro. Zoro didn't even budge. "Big bro, our swords are coming at you," Johnny yelled. "Didn't you say you wanted them?" screamed Yasaku. Just before Hachi struck, Zoro grabbed both blades and began to swerve and deflect all of Hachi's blades. "Free sword style," Zoro said as he appeared behind Hachi. Bleeding the wolf both stood there for a moment before Hachi was slashed and blood dripped from his chest. "Nayu? How dare you?" Hachi yelled as he turned to face Zoro. "Nayu?" he said as he noticed Zoro wobble around a bit and sweating a lot. "His wound from Hawkeye hasn't healed yet," Yasaku said. "It'd probably take half a year for it to finish healing, yet he's moving around like it's nothing," said Johnny. "That idiot. Why didn't he?" Sanji said before Karubi's fist knocked him through the wall of the fence surrounding Arlong Park. "You shouldn't take your eyes off your opponent," Karubi said. "I'm a level 40 master of fishman karate." "Brother Cook," Johnny and Yasaku screamed. Sanji just lay there in a daze with blood slipping out of his mouth. "Shahahaha," Arlong laughed. "Did you humans really think you had a chance?" he asked, grinning at the sight of Zoro and Sanji either down or on their last legs. "Why don't you join them?" he shouted as he lunged at Luffy. Luffy merely stepped to the side, avoiding the attack before grabbing Arlong's head and shoving his face into the concrete. "Shut up and watch," Luffy said as he looked back at the fight. Everyone gaped at the sight of Arlong being thrown to the ground so easily. They then turned back to Sanji, who was slowly getting up and was lighting a cigarette. "Level 40, huh?" he asked as he breathed out some smoke. "Then the geezer's kicks must have been level 400. He then slowly walked back into the park for a rematch against Karubi. "You're still alive?" Karubi asked in disbelief. "Of course I am," Sanji said with a grin. "I know a restaurant full of people who could beat you easily." "I'm being underestimated," Karubi said. "Nayu," Hachi said before he pointed all his blades at Zoro. "Octopus pot stance, eat this," he shouted as he charged at Zoro. "New Year's," he shouted as Zoro blocked his blades. "Octopus opener," he shouted as he moved Zoro's blade away, leaving him open to a massive headbutt from Hachi into his wounds. "Ah," Zoro shouted as his eyes rolled back while he struggled to stay on his feet. "That idiot," Sanji said before Karubi punched him again in the ribs. "Looking away again? Stupid human." Karubi chuckled. While they were fighting, Hachi ran under him before twirling his swords around. Octopus waltz die. Zoro did nothing as he fell on the blades, scaring all the villagers before Hachi screamed as he stared at his bleeding hands. "He spun around with my blades and cut my hands." "How simple," Zoro said as he stood up breathing heavily. An image of Hawkeye flashed through his mind. "What burden do you carry on your shoulders?" "My swords are heavier. That's all." "What? That's impossible. Mine are 300 kg each." "No way are yours heavier." He then put his blades together again. "Pot stance, time to die." He then charged at Zoro, who had a distant look in his eyes. "I'm at my limit. I can barely see," Zoro thought. "But I can't pass out now." He then raised his swords again. "This wound would kill an ordinary man by now. If I am to defeat Hawkeye, then I cannot be ordinary." "Dragon tornado," he shouted as his attack broke Hachi's blades and sent him spiraling skyward. "Like I told him. My swords are heavier. I lost to his three-sword style," Hachi said before he smashed into the concrete. All the villagers stared in disbelief as Arlong tried to move, enraged at seeing Hachi beaten. "Get off of me," Arlong growled as Luffy kept him from moving with his foot. "I said be quiet," Luffy said in a bored tone, not budging at all. Meanwhile, Karubi had knocked Sanji into the water earlier and proceeded to use his fishman karate on Sanji. No matter what Sanji tried, he couldn't move fast enough in the water, giving Karubi a huge advantage. "Haha. All this for some stupid bitch. Sad," he said as he was about to finish Sanji off, only for Sanji to blow air into his gills, suffocating him as they both rose to the water. "You okay?" Zoro asked. "Yeah, I'm alright," he said before shouting and pointing at the water. Get out here, I wanna fight where I can breathe. Kurobit got out of the water before he started spouting about how his attack earlier was nothing compared to his ultimate attack and that his chances of survival were zero, even with a leg coming at him. Neck, he said before kicking Kurubi into the concrete. I told you, didn't I? He said as Kurubi tried to get up. Shoulder, he said with another kick. Not to insult Nami, he said before delivering a rapid series of kicks. Ribs, back, chest, leg. Soon Kurubi was struggling to stand up as Sanji ran towards him. Bastard thousand brick fist, he shouted as he swung at Sanji again, but missed. Now face shot, Sanji yelled as he kicked Kurubi through the building, ending their fight for good. That's that. While they were all fighting, two others were far off near some wetlands. That human could run fast. Chu said as he looked down at a bleeding Usopp. He had shot him with a water blast and was now smirking before he started walking back to Arlong Park. Usopp looked at him with a grin. Glad I made that special ketchup star for something like this. He thought as he watched Chu keep walking away. Those fishmen are way too powerful. Sorry, Nami. I wanna help, but I don't wanna die either. When Chu was safe distance away, Usopp sat up. Still, with all this ketchup, I look like I was hurt. Maybe a bit of dirt will help out to make it seem more real. He then began to rub some dirt on his arm. What should I say? Sorry, but I lost. As he kept talking, his friends and all the others back at the village were flashing through his mind. Aren't we crewmates? I prefer death. Sorry, Usopp, but this is for the sake of my business. It's an honor to help a lady in need. Do you know how hard it's been for Nami? You can't win, so stay out of their fight. Let's fight. Usopp just stared at the ground as an image of his crew all laughing flashed through his mind before he started to tremble as tears fell from his eyes. I'm nothing but a liar and a coward, he thought before he stood up, wiped his eyes, and looked in Chu's direction. Hold up, you fish bastard, he shouted. Chu stopped in his tracks, which made Usopp jump in terror. Oh? Still alive, huh? Chu said as he looked back at Usopp with a bored glare. Of course I am, a little water's nothing to me, Usopp yelled as he fished around in his bag of tricks. Chu looked annoyed as he slowly started walking back. The moment I left my village, peace and safety became foreign to me. Usopp thought. Those guys push themselves to the limit every day, living their lives to the fullest. That's why they laugh so much. He got his slingshot out and aimed at Chu, who was now starting to run. If I don't fight as hard as they do, I won't have any right to travel on the same ship as them. I want the right to laugh with them, he shouted as he let loose an exploding star. Chu lunged at him, punching through the explosive star and straight into Usopp's face, smacking his head to the ground before flipping and landing a few feet away as Usopp lay on the ground bleeding. Moron. You should have just kept playing dead. Guess you're too dumb to even do that. Chu said. Is it over? Usopp asked as he lay bleeding on the ground. Yeah. For you, Chu said as he kicked Usopp's side. Knock it off, Usopp grunted. Usopp hammer, he shouted as he smashed his hammer into Chu's shin. Chu garbled in pain as Usopp stood up. Usopp, rubber band of doom, he shouted, making Chu flinch. Chu opened his eyes after a few moments to see that Usopp had disappeared. I fell for that. Crap, where'd he go? Chu shouted before he turned red with embarrassment. That little prick. Hatch, Usopp shouted from the trees as a bottle flew towards Chu, who caught it with ease. Liquor. Lead star, Usopp shouted as the bottle shattered, splashing Chu with glass and booze. I've had enough of these tricks, I'll destroy you with my squirt cannon. Chu said as he began sucking up water from the area. So what if they're tricks? Doesn't matter. Usopp said. Usopp the Brave will not run from this fight. He said as Chu, who looked like a bloated whale, aimed his attack at the forest. Squirt cannon, he shouted as he blasted all the water at the forest, destroying all the trees in his path. Usopp looked on in terror, while Chu just stared in disbelief that Usopp revealed himself. Dumbus. Time to die, squirt machine gun. Crap, how'd he find me? Usopp shouted as hundreds of little water droplets blasted away at the tree he was hiding behind. Crap, this is bad. I went out to sea to be a real pirate, to be a brave warrior of the sea. My days just playing pirate are over, he shouted as Chu kicked the tree he was hiding behind in half and caught it in midair. What's over? Chu asked with a grin. This fight, Usopp said as he rolled away before aiming at Chu with his slingshot. Booze is flammable, Usopp, flaming star, he shouted as Chu was soon enveloped in flames. Hot fire, hot water, I need water, Chu shouted as he ran for the nearby wetlands with Usopp right behind him. Usopp jumped into the air right at Chu. Usopp hammer, he shouted before knocking Chu down in the wetlands. He soared over to the other side before he hit the ground and skid to a stop. He got back up to see Chu lying down in the water before he started getting back up. Bastard, Chu grunted, sending Usopp into a terror-induced frenzy with his hammer and a rubber band. By the time he was done, Chu's head was covered with bumps as he lay there crying and unconscious. Usopp looked to the sky with his hammer in hand, breathing heavily before he fell backwards into the water. I did it, I beat a fishman, he thought. Even I can do it if I try, don't underestimate me, you bastard, he shouted. I am Usopp, the pirate. No way. Nijiko thought as she just stared at the scene. They're actually defeating the fishmen. This is unreal. That's it, Arlong yelled as pushed himself off the ground, flinging Luffy off as well. Hachi Karubi, I've had enough of you vermin hurting my fishmen brethren. Arlong, came a shout from behind the crowd. Everyone looked to see Nami glaring at Arlong. Well, if it isn't Nami. Arlong said. What are you doing here? I've come here to kill you. Chahahaha, kill me? Arlong laughed. How many times have you tried, Nami? Poison. Assassination. Each time you've tried, only to fail. Nami and all the villagers flinched at those words. Face it, Nami, Arlong said with a horrible grin that terrified her to the core. You'll be nothing but my cartographer for the rest of your days. Shut it, fishman. Sanji said as he and Zoro stood up. Both were bleeding heavily, but still able to fight. Arlong only grinned at them. Pitiful humans. I don't even need to touch you to beat you. Arlong said as he raised his hand, which was full of water. Shut up, Sanji roared as he ran up and aimed a kick at Arlong. Hold it, Sanji, Luffy yelled, but it was too late. Arlong dodged the kick and threw the water at Sanji, who fell back and was now in a daze. What the buck? All he did was throw water at me, but it's like I was hit by a shotgun blast, Sanji thought. Sanji, Nami yelled, along with other villagers. Stay back, guys. Luffy said as he stepped forward and cracked his knuckles. Arlong's mine. Everyone grew quiet as both of them glared at each other. Do you know the difference between you and me? Arlong asked. Nose? Luffy asked, earning some funny looks from everyone. Jaw. Webbing. Species, Arlong yelled as he tried to bite Luffy. Luffy punched him in the face, knocking his teeth out. Now's he's lost his teeth, Usopp shouted, who just now showed up at the hole Sanji made earlier. Usopp? Nami said as she looked at him. Fool, Arlong said as he grew new teeth, shocking everyone. How'd he get new teeth? Johnny asked. I'm a shark. New teeth grow back naturally. Arlong said before he began to pull his teeth out and grow new ones. This is the power the heavens have blessed me with. He said as he held up his hands, each with a pair of his teeth in them. HMPH. Luffy said with a grin. Is that all? Luffy asked. Arlong just sneered before he lunged at Luffy, who didn't move again as Arlong's weapons broke in his hands. Luffy smiled before balling his hand into a fist. Useless. He then punched Arlong harder, this time in the jaw, nearly breaking it as he flew into the water. Everyone cheered at that before a grunting sound caught their attention. Naiu. Hachi said as he regained consciousness. How dare you, rotten humans. Hachi said as he rose to his feet. I'll teach you to attack us, he said as he began to swing his arms around wildly, punching randomly as he ran towards Luffy. Everyone watched in fear while Luffy stared as Hachi swung, but then stopped when his wounds opened up and he stumbled into the water out cold once again. Some sweat dropped at that as a few shouted about a shark fin broke the surface of the water. Luffy the water, Usopp shouted. Luffy looked to see the shark fin sink below the water. Luffy watched the water with a blank expression while Arlong looked up at Luffy with a grin. Idiot. Arlong said. With the water, I'm even stronger. He then sped toward Luffy at great speeds. Shark on Darty screamed as he shot out of the water at Luffy. He went straight for Luffy's chest but stopped in midair. What? Arlong screamed as he, Luffy's crew, and the villagers were watched in complete disbelief. Not fast enough. Luffy said in a calm voice. Just before impact, Luffy grabbed Arlong by the nose and was now holding him in the air. He then raised his other hand before punching Arlong straight into the Arlong Park building. Arlong came out pissed. Inferior human filth, Arlong screamed as his eyes changed into one scene on Sea Kings when they snap. You inferior species, you think you can beat me, a Shinigami? Luffy thought with a glare. Heido, 90. Kurohitsugi black coffin, Luffy said before a huge black coffin surrounded Arlong and the building. What is that, thought everyone. Luffy said as dark spears appeared in the coffin. Few seconds later the coffin disappeared. Arlong Park was destroyed and Arlong lay dead on the ground full of holes. Luffy won, Nami cried out in joy. Big Bru, Johnny and Yasaku screamed with tears in their eyes. Nami, don't run away again. Just ask for our help next time. Luffy said with a smile. Okay. She said with a smile as the tears fell. The other Vipers smiled as well, while the villagers started to let everything they've just seen sink in. He won. He won. We won. Big Bro won. Arlong Park has fallen, someone yelled out. Soon the whole village cried out in joy as they cheered. Finally, after 8 long years, they were all finally free. Isn't that great, sis? Sanji asked as he tried to hug Nijiko, but missed when she hugged Genzo. Am I dreaming? To think this day has finally come. Genzo said as the villagers started tossing Luffy into the air, too happy to be free. You did it, Luffy, you deserve the praise, Usopp shouted out. But if wanna share some of it, I'd be glad. Jeez. Sanji said as he watched everyone. Next time, be quicker about it. The cheering stopped for a second when everyone slipped and Luffy hit the ground. The good mood came back when Luffy started laughing, with everyone laughing as well. Luffy said as he felt his odd. Everyone cheered and danced where they were. That's enough celebrating. Came a voice. Everyone looked to see Captain Nezumi and a few dozen marines behind him aiming their guns at everyone. Everyone glared as Nezumi laughed. Kai 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 kai. I saw the whole thing. Never did I think that a bunch of no-name pirates would defeat Arlong. But this is good news. All the money of Arlong Park now belongs to me. He then pointed at Nami. And also, there's still the deal with your thievery. Everyone looked ready to kill Nezumi when he said that. Everyone, drop your weapons. I, Captain Nezumi of the Marines, will be taking the credit for everything here. He said before he started screaming in terror. It's not nice to be a wet blanket when everyone's having fun. Zoro said with a grin as he had Nezumi's head in his hand. I'm a captain in the Marines. Nezumi mumbled in pain as he and all his Marines were tied up, bleeding, broken, and crying with all the Viper's men standing behind them. Lay one finger on me. See what happens. Nami then came over with her staff in hand. This is for trying to take my money. She said before she smacked him with her staff. Nezumi flew across the water before sinking. Nice shot sis. Nijiko said. He deserves 1,000 more beatings, Genzo said as Nezumi came back up to breathe. Nami walked over to him and started pulling the whiskers on his face. Listen very carefully, because I'm only going to say this once. She said in a calm voice. Okay. I'm listening. Nezumi squeaked out. The money in Arlong Park belongs to the villagers. She said. And you're not to touch the money in my mother's tangerine grove. You are going to clean up this mess and take care of Arlong and his men though, right? I understand. Nezumi said. Good. Now get off our island, she shouted as she let his whiskers go. He swam off a bit before turning around. You'll pay for this, you there, the one with the silver hair. You said your name is Ichimaru Luffy. Yeah. Luffy, you'll get what's coming to you, mark my words, Nezumi shouted before he swam away. As Luffy and his crew started talking, Genzo spoke up. What are you all waiting for? He shouted. We can't keep this to ourselves, spread the word to the whole island, Arlong Park is no more. Yeah, they all shouted before they took off to share the good news with everyone. The party was in full swing. Dancing, singing, music, and everyone smiling and laughing their hearts out. Everyone was happy, despite the painful screams coming from the doctor's clinic. Umbus, the doctor said as he held Zoro down. Jin was sitting on a different bed with a few bandages while the doctor was trying to stitch up Zoro's wound. Why were you moving around with a wood like this? Don't you morons have a doctor on your ship? The doctor, huh? Luffy said as he popped up in the window. Good idea. But a musician first. Why? Zoro grunted. Pirates love to sing, of course. Luffy said before turning to Sanji. What were you eating before? Ham melon. It should be in the party somewhere. Sanji said. Alright, Luffy said as he raced off with food in his hands. Sanji then went to charm some ladies while Usopp started telling stories about his brave fight against the fishmen. This is one crazy crew. Jin said with a grin. You get used to it, OWWW, Zoro yelled. Quit moving, yelled the doctor. It was the third day since Arlong's defeat, yet everyone was still partying like there was no tomorrow. Usopp, Jin, Zoro, and Sanji were all enjoying the party as Johnny and Yosaku danced around. Back at the cliff, Genzo was standing before Bellamir's grave as he poured a bottle of sake onto it. We're finally free. He said. Your daughters have grown into fine young women, Bellamir. The grave? Luffy asked, startling Genzo. Someone died. Oh. It's you, boy. He said. Yes. Many years ago. I see. I give you my condolences, Luffy, before walking away. Listen, boy. Genzo said as Luffy was about to leave. Nami's joining you on your crew. That much I know. It's dangerous out there, but it's her choice. However, if any of you do anything to take away her smile, I'll kill you. He said in a low tone. Feel me, what a joke. Luffy chuckled. You don't have to worry. We won't take her smile away. Luffy said. You sure? Genzo said as he turned and glared at Luffy. I'm sure. Luffy said with a smile. He then walked off while Genzo stayed with the grave, remembering what he, Nami, and Ajiko spoke about earlier there. It's finally over, Bellamir. Nami said to herself as she sat in her empty house. After 8 years, everyone's finally smiling again. She came here earlier for her mother's advice and to show her mother her new tattoo of a pinwheel with a tangerine on it. I just wish you were here. She said as a tear fell from her eye. Suddenly, a knocking at the door brought her out of thoughts. Nami? Are you in there? Came Luffy's voice. Yeah. Come in. She said. Luffy slowly walked in with a chunk of meat hanging from his mouth as he smiled. Hey Nami. What are you doing here? Not enjoying the party? He asked. Nah. I came here to think. She said. Oh. He said before finishing off the food he had. Want me to leave? No. Actually, I'm glad you came. I wanted to talk to you. She said. Luffy smiled as he closed the door and sat down next to her. About what? He said. This, she said before her lips pressed against his. Luffy's eyes shot open as his heart started racing. He stood there for a second before he slowly pulled her into a warm embrace before closing his eyes. After a moment, she pulled away with a smile. "I've wanted to do that the moment you said you'd fight Arlong for me," she said. "Nami, I don't know if I am ready for a relationship. Luffy, we can take things slow. We don't have to rush things." "Nami, okay fine Luffy." She kissed him again. Back at the party, everyone was enjoying themselves with their freedom. Sanji was wooing some ladies before he stopped in his tracks. "What's wrong with you brother Cook?" Yasaku asked with chopsticks up his nose. "I don't know why, but I have this sudden urge to kill that captain of mine," he said as he bit down on his cigarette. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.